Welcome to the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, where we explore the impact of EdTech on the student experience with engaging, fun, and relevant conversations that honor the wide range of work happening all across the higher ed ecosystem. I'm your host, Dustin Ramsdell. I've been working in and around higher ed for the past decade, focused on student support and digital experience. Join me every week for discussions with some of the best minds in education technology who will be bringing you their perspectives on how digital transformation is reshaping the way we recruit, engage, and graduate learners. You'll hear firsthand accounts of how institutional leaders are developing their strategy, as well as get deeper on the stories of how these EdTech tools are being built to foster better student outcomes. With that, let's get to today's episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 333, with Auryan Ratliff, Arizona State University, continuing a string of conversations we've had recently around how AI is impacting teaching and learning. This one shifts a little bit more toward building great courses using AI, but also obviously acknowledging some of the kind of issues around ensuring academic integrity and learning assessment. So I think just really appreciate Auryan's kind of interest and passion and just talking about all of his kind of journey and experience practicing and playing with and testing out AI tools and just talking about all kind of the really positive possibilities that AI is presenting higher education to really just kind of re-examine learning experiences for students and just creating more the authentic, interactive, just dynamic, just engaging learning experiences. Really appreciate Auryan's time and all that he shared. But do sit back and enjoy, and thanks for listening to this episode, number 333, with Auryan Ratliff. As of the recording of this, I was just in San Diego for ASU GSV last week, because obviously ASU, Arizona State University, has a very big presence at that event. So I met many members of the team there and was excited to also make sure, set up a conversation with our guest today to kind of further elaborate on obviously, as we're starting on this show to really interface with a lot more kind of tangible specifics and strategy building around AI and higher education from as many kind of different vantage points as we can. But Auryan, if you want to briefly introduce yourself and your background, and then we'll get more into kind of your role and your journey with AI and specifically kind of confronting a little bit more around course design and building.
Thank you so much for having me, Dustin. My name is Auryan Ratliff. I'm our Director for Technology, Innovation, and R&D at EdPlus at Arizona State University. We are the main facilitators for ASU Online, so serving largely an online audience, supporting all their technology needs there. And I oversee a small portfolio of emerging technology initiatives, ranging from AI, VR, to just new hardware and technology and ways for us to deliver experiences to students, and exploring those things and seeing how we can actually improve that student experience for folks here at ASU. As for my background, I've been with the university for a little over 10 years now. I actually graduated from ASU, got hired after I graduated. I actually started in graphic design, went into UX design, which is really my background. I do really honestly identify as a designer and bring a lot of that experience into the sorts of things we're building with these new technologies. But from there, went into more emerging technologies, working in the XR game design space. And then in the last couple of years, as AI has become more of a prevalent tool for us to truly transform the student experience, have founded our AI product team here at EdPlus, and then gone on to manage some of our more high portfolio emerging technology initiatives.
Yeah, I appreciate you just kind of sharing some context on your story and a little bit about your role and everything. And I was at a different event a few months ago that was held in Phoenix, and we got to tour the virtual reality space and everything. And there's some really cool stuff there where there is just some entertainment, kind of team building or whatever else aspects of what's happening there, but some great learning experiences as well. So it was really cool to see. And I think just your story is certainly emblematic of the kind of continued investment and expansion of everything happening at ASU to continue to expand the innovation and just the ways that you can deliver education to folks, whether, they're all sitting in the same room, but doing a virtual reality thing, or maybe all over the world learning together and all that. So it's great. So curious just with you, because I think your story, will maybe be an interesting one to examine, because it's been very frantic pace with AI and these large language models, the chatbots of ChatGPT and all that, all just becoming commonplace in our life. That people have been talking about them a lot over these past couple of years. But I'm just curious if you can share anything about your growth journey, exploring and utilizing AI and implementing it within the higher ed context.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. My journey and my start with this technology was really informal. I'm always someone who's just eager to try the new tool. I know we talked about XR, we're talking about AI today, but even the work that I did in the immersive technology space, that came from just a pure curiosity and passion. I was the person who was bringing their VR headset into the office going, have you all seen this? You need to try this. Put this on you right now. And it was the same thing with AI. ChatGPT dropped and I'm going, did you see it could do this? I'm having it do these functions for us. Maybe it could do this. And there was no real formal study that went into AI. It was purely just us seeing an opportunity and going, it is our responsibility to understand what these things can do and what this means for our students. And so from there, it really just started to blossom. Some of our early wins in this space were around recommendation engines for students. How can we use AI to make the personalization and degree selection process a little easier? And that all came from, hey, did you know you can talk to ChatGPT and it can actually recommend a degree for you? Well, what is it recommending? Oh, we actually don't like this output. What is the output we would like? And you naturally, as you just start playing with these tools, you start asking the right questions until you get to the point where you start answering those questions. And before you know it, you've got a product in front of you that's solving real problems for your university. And I could go on, but it really was just curiosity and passion and the willingness to ask the next question and try the next solution until we got to something that was really valuable for us.
Yeah, I think that's what I appreciate about this moment with AI as far as I've observed from the sidelines to an extent, but that it has been not necessarily like primarily coming out of academic computer science researchers, whatever, like that was maybe several years ago in machine learning and data analytics. And that was the byproduct of all that. And I think building upon it, it has been one hallmark of it is that idea of the accessibility of these tools has allowed for people to just play around with them, figure them out, and then start ideating from there in terms of all the various use cases. And that is even where a lot of the tools that we use every day are now launching new embedded AI features. So it's just like a part of your everyday experience of using CRM or something. The idea of Google, if you're using Gmail and this and that, the other, like it's just there. You could just do an AI thing in terms of summarizing search results or in terms of like emails and writing responses, whatever else. And I think what I feel like has been the current phase is a lot of people talking about the possibilities of agentic AI and the complexity of tasks and things that you can impart on these tools. Even, I guess it might be doing me a favor here, just in case folks maybe don't fully understand the context of our conversation, if you want to just briefly, like the textbook definition of what does agentic AI mean, and then how you see it making us rethink course design and building.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to think about it is when you're thinking about traditional generative AI use, the very first version of ChatGPT that came out, that process was very question and answer. I'm going to ask you something, I'm going to tell you something, and you're going to respond with one thing. I think the difference between this and agentic is there is a lot more actual reasoning capability that's happening at the model level, at the AI level, that you're not seeing in your traditional QA generative AI interactions. There's even more calls that are happening. I don't want to get too technical, but when you are talking to something like ChatGPT, it's one API call to their model and you get one response. When you're talking about agentic workflows, the models and the harness for how those models are used are doing a lot of AI calls on the background. You're sending a question and its first response is, let me understand this better. And so it's diving into the content. It's doing external research. It's really defining what it needs to do to serve whatever request that you send to it. And then now it has its own objective and it's going, all right, let me now do research in 3 different spaces to ensure that I'm getting a really robust answer with a lot of different perspectives included into this. And then now that I have all this information, I'm going to do one more call and actually produce a report with this. And it's not just going to be some text output into the chat window that we're using, but let me produce a document. Let me build a website for you. And so one, again, it's that increased reasoning capabilities. It's really thinking deeply and doing more behind the scenes than traditional generative AI, but also it's more capable. It can actually start to take actions for you. I think that's also where we're seeing a lot of value from these agentic systems are the deep integrations into the tools that we're using every day. Now it's not, hey, ChatGPT, help me build a quiz. It's, hey, so-and-so project or product, here's some information, help me build this quiz and put it into Canvas and then QA it and then make sure it's accessible. And it's doing those things now. And so what it's able to do for us has significantly increased from where AI was just 2-3 years ago.
Let's take a quick pause to talk about something big happening this summer. The Engage Summit 2026. The next era of higher ed isn't about adding more tools. It's about building the agentic campus, where AI works alongside your teams to recruit smarter, support students faster, and scale impact without burning people out.
From real-world examples of agentic systems in action to hands-on sessions that show how AI can coordinate enrollment, marketing, advising, and operations, Engage Summit is where institutions move from experimentation to execution. If you're ready to design a campus where AI doesn't just assist, but instead acts, learns, and drives outcomes, then you'll want to be in Charlotte June 15th through the 17th. But it gets even better. As an Enrollify listener, you can grab your ticket for half off. Just head to engage.element451.com and use code Dustin50 to apply the 50% off discount. That's DUSTIN50. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah, and it is that sort of excitement where I think it was the aspiration of, as like chatbots came out and that idea that you could converse and try to get something done, there wasn't really the horsepower behind it, I think, a decade plus ago. And we're now at that point. I think we're past the watershed moment of every course has some sort of digital representation in terms of conversing with faculty and your fellow students or submitting assignments, getting grades and those sort of things. And certainly for fully online courses, I mean, very heavily on learning management systems and stuff. But yeah, it could just be very labor intensive to do that. Period. And then especially to do it super well and with a bunch of cool, innovative tools and things like that. And I think a big part that I know we've done a lot of episodes on recently is around learning assessment. The idea of, and I want to put this question to you in an interesting way, because I think we've had this conversation from a lot of different angles. We will sit with this for a little bit, but how do you see AI making learning assessment easier and or harder?
I'm going to start with the harder piece because I think that one's a little bit more right here in front of us. I think everyone is dealing with it right now. I think the hard truth is these tools do make it easier for students to cheat on assignments. And this is on ground, this is online, and this isn't unique to ASU. It's happening everywhere. We've done surveys with students and a large number of them are using AI. We just did some research on a few different social platforms, just trying to get a sense of how students are feeling about AI in courses. And there's no shortage of videos out there of people talking about how to use these tools to do these things that we may not want them doing as a university. And I think that's the immediate difficult piece of this. And I'm going to talk about what is exciting about it and what makes this a little bit easier for us in terms of how we address this. But then it actually is going to come back around to what makes that so hard. So that's the first piece. Students are using this technology in ways we don't want them to maybe get answers we don't want them to have or produce homework assignments that they didn't authentically generate themselves. But the truth of it, and I think the path that we're really starting to think deeply about is how do we then change the assignments we're providing? How do we change the assessments that we're giving? So that's less of an issue, but also can create a better student experience. And one tool I want to talk about in particular we're building out here at the university is Language Buddy. And this actually came from our School of International Letters and Cultures. They teach a lot of our other languages, and you can actually go and learn German, Spanish, all your classic additional languages outside of English. And in that course, they traditionally, especially when you talk about teaching online, traditionally in a course, you're practicing by speaking with your other classmates. You're practicing by speaking with your faculty in these languages that you're learning. And when you talk about moving that online, that could be something that's really difficult to scale. We actually had programs and initiatives in these courses where we'd actually hire actors and we'd hire groups to hop on Zooms and actually talk to these students in these other languages so they had someone to practice with. And sure, it was a great experience, but it's also hard to scale that. And that's also maybe not the most cost-effective solution. And so there's a faculty that came out of that school that said, hey, can we use AI to help with this? And we partnered with the faculty and we ended up building out a full-blown solution for Canvas, LTI integrated, called Language Buddy, where I can go into Canvas, we can set goals for the student. We can set their learning level and where they're at in terms of their understanding of this language. And you can go and speak to AI in Spanish. You can go and speak to AI in German, and it can actually have that conversation with you, which is super powerful. But also, we can see everything you're saying to this bot, and we can track all of this information. And so what maybe was a quiz before is just a conversation that you're having, and we can assess that. Sure, ChatGPT can maybe help you with your paper. ChatGPT is not going to be able to get on camera and talk to this AI and have this conversation, and looking at things like conversational assessment as a solution to maybe the traditional forms of cheating that we're seeing as students is something we're really excited about. And again, not just because, hey, you can't use AI to maybe get through this a little faster, but also we think it creates a better experience. Not only is it more enjoyable, you're talking to this avatar that's speaking to you in another language, it's adaptive. And so you can take the direction where you want to go. It's actually really nice if it speaks to you in Spanish at a level that it's maybe a little too advanced for you. I could stop in English and go, wait, I didn't actually understand that. And then the bot can, in English, explain what it was saying and then quickly switch back to it being Spanish. So it's part assessment, it's part tutoring, it is personalized and adaptive to the students. And we think overall it's a better experience. I think the real difficulty is it takes time to build these things. And yes, we're nervous about AI and how students are using it. Yes, we have ways that we are solving this, improving the experience and mitigating some of those issues with AI for cheating. But these things are difficult to build and they do take time. And so I think that's where a lot of universities are struggling, but that's definitely the direction we're heading in. And I think a lot of other universities will be going.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very well said. I think a great way to honor all the dynamics that are at play here. That's making certain things easier and harder, because I think there's certainly a perspective where it's let's keep doing the things the way we've always done them, but try to put walls and restrictions and limitations and all that. And I think I'm always thinking about with like all these tools, like you're always trying to balance like security with convenience, and some people are just going to go on the route of we're going to try to just lock things down. But yeah, like honestly, exactly what you said is some of the conversations we've had around spoken word assessment or simulations and different things. Like those just become better now with kind of AI behind them. The same thing like the chatbots and stuff, and it allows this opportunity back to like course building and design to like from the jump rethink how we're facilitating these courses, assessing learning and all that, and get away from the over reliance on just like multiple choice quizzes and discussion boards and those sort of things, where it's just that was like easy again when it was just the time intensive and workload issues and concerns of it's just okay, let's just do the default option, which is like what we know, and we can just easily replicate those kind of things. So yeah, it's really exciting to see just folks really taking up the mantle to look at this as an opportunity. It certainly will be challenging to rethink and reimagine and rebuild and all that. But like you said, ultimately, it will provide a better student experience and just learning outcomes and all that. That is certainly an exciting moment. But yes, there is lots of work to be done for sure.
Well, I'll add, it's not just AI and these experiences to combat some of these issues that we're facing as an industry, but also AI is making it easier for us to build these experiences as well. That has also been really helpful for us. Don't get me wrong, we had a proper development team build out the final language buddy build, where you're dealing with student information, you're dealing with LTIs. These are really complex builds. But we had an early proof of concept that was built by one person in a week, and they built that using some vibe coding solutions. And I think it's not just the end solution that's student facing. I would also highly encourage folks to start using these tools to see how they can prototype and build their own solutions as well, because we wouldn't have even got there if we didn't have those tools.
I think there's so much power right now around, especially for students, to get them to start building. Because I think, like the idea that there's so much of a bad rap around the sort of like cheating and all those sort of things, the hope would be that they can, again, play around in the sandbox and kind of get to a point where we're seeing the possibilities and all things that are just more positive around this. But again, that is a good thing and sort of its own little microcosm, but certainly you have to have a good team culture in terms of maybe going about that in the right way. So anything I guess you could share to that, I'd be curious.
I am lucky to be at a university like ASU. The posters are everywhere. I don't need to bring it up, but we are big on our innovation. And so culture is a huge part of how we're able to make these things work. I think the university where we're lucky too is just how large it is, how many schools we have, different subject matter areas. We have the online aspect, but there's also on ground that we're able to leverage for different opportunities and different testing. And one, we have leadership that supports us exploring this technology. I think that's first and foremost. You got to have a budget and you got to have time. I think that is a huge part of this. It still is the Wild West. I know it's been a few years. Everyone's got their AI tool of choice, but things are still moving so fast that it's impossible to fully understand what's available to you and all the full capabilities of this technology. And the only thing that we have found to at least somewhat tackle that is give people time to play with these tools. And that's the first thing that has to happen at the highest levels of your organization. You need to provide that culture. You need to provide that time, and you need to provide those tools. And then from there, you kind of hit on this as well. It's not find the helpers, but find the people willing to help the helpers. But you're absolutely right. Not every single person at the university is going, give me the new technology, change the way I do everything in my course. But there are folks who do want that. And so it's all about finding those individuals, investing in them, to your point, testing with real students, getting real feedback. And then that also changes how it's received by other individuals. It's not me as a technologist going to a faculty member saying, hey, I have this new tool that's going to solve all the problems that you have. It's a faculty member going to their other colleagues saying, hey, you'll never believe the experience I just delivered in my course. And look at what my students are saying. And those students are now going into other courses going, I had a different course and this is how we did it. And being able to just start somewhere and start to build that momentum build a coalition of the willing is absolutely something that has been so important. And then the momentum builds and builds, and eventually you have a tidal wave and you have a tool that the perception and the demand shifts. It goes from us trying to get some faculty to work with us to, hey, we got a bunch of faculty knocking down our door to get access to this tool. And that's honestly one of our biggest success indicators is when we're getting emails in saying, hey, I heard this, or I saw you over here, and how do I get access? I'd really love to try this. And we've actually been seeing a lot more of that. And I think that's a simplistic take, but at a high level, like that has truly been it. We give ourselves time. We find the people who want to try things with us. We try and we test extensively. Data talks. We are a university. We are dealing with faculty and academics. And so you need to be able to put your money where your mouth is and put your data where your mouth is and really show that these things make impact. But as long as you're building good experiences, the process is easy.
As much as we're singing the praises of AI quite a bit in this episode, like acknowledging, that kind of cultural piece, the change management, we're implying a lot by just a simple framing here of the coalition building and all those sort of things. But I think it is just that idea of if you can even just sit with that and have it inform your mindset and go from there, like always kind of keep a certain North Star of how are we kind of going about this in a responsible, ethical way, but also just being transparent, being collaborative and all of that. Because I think folks like yourself helping to kind of tread the path and show your work and share with folks is certainly much appreciated. And I think you've already given some great perspectives and insights and just reflections and advice, but always at the end of the episode, kind of giving our guests the final word here. Any other pieces of advice that you would give to other higher ed leaders navigating this moment?
Okay, I had two things. I maybe even wanted to add a quick follow-up to the previous question, if that's okay with you. Absolutely, we are singing the praises of AI, and we couldn't do a lot of the things we're doing in this space right now without the technology. But I think what's been really eye-opening to us is this technology has actually made us more human. These solutions that we are building are human driven. It was a faculty member going, I have a problem and I wish I could do this. And in a world where we would normally say no, we were able to say yes. And she got to become a product manager, driving a whole, essentially, little tech startup where we're building these experiences. That's something that never would have happened without AI. People feel empowered to build and craft and just ask questions they never would have asked before because they just assumed the answer was no. I think, yes, AI can do more, but that is empowering us, not disenfranchising us, and just really want to hit on that. As great as this technology is, none of the things that we're doing here at this university with it would happen without the humans and the questions that they're asking and the problems that they're surfacing and the feedback that they're providing. So it really is all about the human experience. And that's honestly more core to what we're doing here than to technology itself. I wanted to add that. But then to your last question of what would I give to other leaders and folks in the higher ed space around this technology, well, there's many things I want to say here too. But I think the big one is when we meet with other universities, there is this still uneasiness around what do we choose, and maybe we'll wait and there will be something that sort of emerges after other people go and do that experimentation. And the truth of the matter is, I don't think AI innovation is going to stop anytime soon. And those folks who are waiting to jump in, I think, are doing themselves a disservice. There is not going to be a moment where things slow down and then you can jump in and make that safe bet. I think the real muscle people need to build is being able to adapt with the technology. And you're not going to be able to build that muscle unless you get into the technology yourself and have a deep understanding and are actively learning the constraints and the improvements and the new features and the capabilities. And if you're waiting, stop waiting. You got to jump in. You got to try these things. There's no way around this. There's only through. And if you haven't gotten your feet wet yet, I highly encourage it.
And I hope in any other institution in their own way, or maybe even just their own small way, could emulate that a bit, of empower that person that has a similar passion that you do on your campus to chart that path forward and herald and shepherd everyone else along, help support them and guide them and give them opportunities to get their feet wet and play in the sandbox of AI and whatever aspects it might be at your institution. Really do appreciate you hanging out and sharing all that you did, ways to connect with you and the work that you're doing at ASU in the episode description. But yeah, just great talking to you, and I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Destin, thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Geek podcast. This show is a proud member of the Enrollify Network, home to Higher Ed's largest collection of podcasts. Enrollify is where higher ed goes to grow. So be sure to check out our other podcasts, webinars, video clips, blogs, and more. Visit Enrollify.org and subscribe for all the latest details and content drops directly to your inbox. Enrollify is brought to you by Element 451, the digital workforce platform for higher ed. Learn more at element451.com.